Today, I'm joined by my co-moderator, Deborah Taylor of Southeast Michigan Community Alliance, or SEMCA, two of our talented JMG specialists, Amanda Althouse and Stacy Brown-Smith, as well as three of our exceptional JMG youth, David Carter Jr., Micaiah Coleman, and 2019 JMG Student of the Year, Tamaya Clay. As always, they're the true stars of this coffee hour, and we'll be hearing from each of them momentarily. We launched the Coffee with a Purpose series to bring meaningful action to our written words. In a statement affirming our organizational commitment to equality, we wrote, "It is essential to encourage youth to use their voice for good. It's equally essential to have productive conversations where we listen, understand, and take appropriate actions to ensure an equal and great future for all of Michigan's youth. By way of action and not just words, we bring you this virtual platform to lift youth voices, encourage adult listening, and prompt appropriate action. We thank all of you for joining in this effort and for your commitment to the young people of this great state." Continuing protests across our country are creating a sense of urgency around healing divisions and resolving the inequities that plague our nation. Youth of color are looking to the future and questioning outcomes and opportunities that may or may not be available to them, with race as a leading predictor. It's important that youth are given opportunities to discuss issues of racism and the structural causes of inequality that they face in education, employment, and in their communities. Today, we'll look at the challenges and barriers youth of color must overcome because of racial inequality. I'm again honored to introduce my co-moderator of the discussion, Deborah Taylor. Deborah is the Workforce Programs Manager at Southeast Michigan Community Alliance, a longtime partner of the Youth Solutions Organization. Welcome, Deborah. Thanks for being on this morning.
Well, thank you, Kristen. You are just an amazing leader across the state of Michigan, and I am so proud to be on this session with you today. And I just can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart for all that you do and for bringing this very important topic to the platform today. I want to just say, first of all, good morning to everyone on. And I really believe this is very important for you to be here today to take part of what we're doing. We're really looking forward to this discussion. And so I am the Workforce Programs Manager in Southeast Michigan Community Alliance, as Kristen mentioned, and we represent all of Wayne County except for Detroit, which has its own Michigan Works agency. Our agency covers all of the areas, as I mentioned, outside of Detroit and Wayne County and Monroe County. We represent 33 public school districts and 55 high schools. Very large area, very diverse. We have an urban and suburban mixture. And so our work in my area is representing ages 14 to 24-year-olds. And we have 6 service centers throughout the area that I mentioned that provides direct services for the populations that need assistance with workforce services. And our goal is to help, especially in the youth area, our young people with whatever career or educational pursuit they wish to pursue, and to provide those resources. Jobs for Michigan Graduates program has been a very strong impetus for us to be able to move that agenda along. And so with the services we provide in the 6 service centers, along with 5 in-school programs, meaning we have Jobs for Michigan Graduates now in 5 of these very important districts of need and interest, we're super excited about the progress that's been made over the last, now going into 5 years. So I'm happy to be a part of this opportunity to hear the real stories of these youth, to listen, to understand, and to take action, to overcome these societal biases and make real and lasting change. I would like to introduce next our esteemed JMG specialists. I'm so proud of the work that these amazing staff members have done, and JMG is a major part of my portfolio. So Amanda Althouse from Orchard Center High School is with us today. You'll be hearing from her. Stacy Brown-Smith from River Rouge High School, who is our most senior specialist in the area and who has really put us on the map for great work. And they are both in partnership with Southeast Michigan Community Alliance. Welcome, team JMG. I also would like to introduce 3 young people who are here to share their thoughts and experiences. I want to say welcome to Tamaya Clay, a current student at Southeast Michigan College studying communications. She's a 2019 graduate of Benton Harbor High School and a 2019 JMG Student of the Year. Wow, that's really, really impressive. Tamaya has a strong interest in STEM and also at science, technology, engineering, and math careers, and plans to pursue a career in this area. Micah Coleman is a JMG alum, so she's been a major part of our program and has now moved on, and she's a 2019 graduate of River Rouge High School. She just finished her freshman year at Central State University in Ohio, where she studies accounting and was named Miss. Again, wow, very esteemed, wonderful young people that are making a difference you'll be hearing from. And finally, David Carter Jr., who unfortunately is only able to join us for the first half of our conversation. David is a 2020 graduate of River Rouge High School. This fall, David will be attending Eastern Michigan University on a football scholarship where he will study business management. He is also a young entrepreneur owning his own high-end clothing line. Listen to this. Is that amazing or what? His clothing line is called Lavish Habits. Great job, young man. We're proud of you and we're cheering for you as an entrepreneur. Thank you all for being here. We have over 80 adults that are on the line also joining us today. Welcome to all of you. And I know you're eager to listen and learn from what the discussion is today. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kristen.
Thanks, Deborah. And quick plug, because we love entrepreneurship, we asked David to share his information to his clothing line in the chat function. So that's a great way to start engaging with the chat. Check that out and you can find him on social media properties and purchase some swag for yourself or your friends or family. Thanks again, Deborah, for introducing our panelists. I'm very excited, as Deborah said, that you'll all join in this important and timely discussion. Seems like everybody gets the gist, but of course, if you're not speaking, we ask that you keep your phones and audio muted throughout the hour. For audience members who do wish to ask any questions of our panelists, we will be monitoring the chat messaging feature throughout the session, and we'll reserve time for audience questions. With housekeeping aside and coffee freshly brewed, let's get started. First, I'll ask each of our young people and the specialists to introduce themselves briefly, beginning with Micaiah.
Good morning, everyone. I am Micaiah Coleman.
Good morning. Anything else you want to share with us, Micaiah?
I don't know. I had to do a full introduction, but my name is Micaiah Coleman. Once again, I graduated from River Rouge High School. I attended Central State University, where I was crowned Miss Freshman. I was the top 25% of my class. So yeah.
That's awesome. Welcome, Micaiah.
Thank
David,
you.
how about you?
Good morning, everybody. I am David Carter Jr. I graduated from River Rouge High School this year. Unfortunately, I don't have a football season this year because of the COVID. But I'm excited to attend Eastern Michigan. I chose Eastern Michigan because it's close home and just a family atmosphere. So, yeah.
Thanks, David. Tamaya?
Hi, my name is Tamaya Clay. I'm a 2019 graduate of Benton Harbor High School, and right now I'm studying communications at Southwestern Michigan College. I have a 4.0 GPA, and I love, love, love math. So yeah.
That's awesome. And I can personally attest Tamaya is a rock star. All right. Speaking of rock stars, Stacy.
Hey guys, I'm Stacy Brown Smith. I'm the specialist at River Rouge High School. I love the program. We have a great time and I'm ready to get started. No coffee for me, but I do have my tea,
Nice.
everything. And you know, I think that about myself.
Love it. And last but not least, Amanda.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amanda Althouse. I'm the specialist at Orchard Center High School. I'm really excited and grateful to be asked to be on the panel today to discuss this. So thanks for having me, and I'm ready to get started.
Absolutely. Welcome, everybody. Deborah, over to you.
All right, great. I love Stacy's confidence that she showcased, and I think for anyone that's on here, that's very important. What you feel about yourself is very important, and it projects out. Very, very important. So today's topic for the coffee session is striving for equity. So we all know right now that that's a very important topic, and the perspectives, concerns, and calls to action from our youth are what we're talking about today. Today, we're going to explore the challenges and impacts facing our young people of color as they plan for their futures. As we start our initial questions, please use, again, the chat function that Kristen mentioned to add your own. If you're on the computer, if you haven't used it, you can see it towards the bottom of the screen. Just literally click in there, put your comments in there, we will be monitoring that. As Kristen noted, monitoring, and we will incorporate your audience questions throughout the session. With that, we're going to get started. My first question is to our young people. How has being a person of color in America shaped the way you approach life? Tamaya, please help us get started with that.
Yeah, so being a person of color in America is definitely a hard thing. For me personally, the biggest thing I struggle with is when I'm filling out an application. When I'm filling out a job application or any application where I have to be evaluated for my qualifications, I get scared because I'm not just being validated or evaluated because of my qualifications. I'm being validated as well because of the color of my skin. And there's been a lot of times in my past where I didn't apply for certain things, even though I had the qualifications, just because of the color of my skin. I knew I would be judged because of that. So there's always a mini fear that comes when I have to fill out an application where it asks me for my ethnicity or my race. I get scared of that because, I'm going to be validated for the way I look and not just my qualifications that I have for the position.
Yeah, that's something that some people, people may not think about, right? Like that would be even a concern, and that's a real valid issue. So, any follow-up questions from anyone that's on our moderation panel? Okay, very good. Thank you for stating that. Micah, what about you?
It's Micaiah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Micaiah. Okay, thank you, Micaiah. I'd like to hear from you next.
Okay, so I too can agree that being an African American in America is challenging. However, what do challenges do? They make you figure out things about yourself that you kind of never really knew before, per se. Additionally, African Americans face systematic obstacles just to even receive good jobs. And so knowing that African Americans were the only people who weren't allowed to learn by law, not only that, African Americans are the only people in America whose humanity was codified by the law. Additionally, we had to fight to just prove that we were human beings. And so knowing that, it makes me strive to work a lot harder, knowing that piggybacking off of what Tamaya has said, that you're not being looked at the same. You are, in a certain sense, being judged by the color of your skin. So what can you do to make yourself stand out against everyone else?
Yeah, those are very important thoughts, aren't they? They really are. Thank you for sharing that, and also thank you for speaking up. Anytime you have a situation where something is not accurate or correct, like your name pronunciation or anything, speaking up is very important, and that's really, we're talking about that today, right? Like how to deal with equity issues and just being a voice. So thank you for that. I'd like to turn to you next for your feedback and comments.
Okay, being African American in America is just like having a big target on our backs. It's very hard to do certain things, especially the way people look at us. Like they say, applying for a job, people don't just only just look at our qualifications. They look at our skin color as well, in which, Black people, we work very hard as well as other races, we're not just the only different people just in the society, and I hate being looked as that. It's actually kind of hard going outside and you got to look over our shoulder, or just walk past, some people and they just whispering under their breath, talking about us. So it's very hard, being in America. But me personally, I just learned to just keep going. Don't worry about what other people says. Don't let them talk about your skin color, because we're all the same. We all carry the same blood. So, and we're all human beings. So I'm not worried about what other people have to say. So I decided to just keep my head down and keep moving forward.
Very well said. Very well said. All right. Well, thank you.
Deborah, if I can jump in, Gavin has a great question as follow-up on the chat function. And thanks, Gavin, for sharing. Tamaya, you mentioned it, and David, you did as to some extent as well. You were talking about the decision not to even apply for jobs. The question on the chat is, what experiences, actions led to the feeling or knowledge that you knew you would be profiled? And the audience, it caught me a bit by surprise, and I'm sure others are feeling the same. Tell us more about that if you don't mind. And then certainly, David, if you have anything to add, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Yes. So what happened was, I actually have a cousin who did an experiment with this. So my cousin is Black, of course, and his friend was named John, and he was a white guy. They both filled out the exact same application. They both went to Michigan State University, and they both had the exact same degree path. They both filled out the application. John got the job, and my cousin did not. And they had the exact same qualifications, all of that. Y'all probably know about the Tyrone story versus the Chad story. You guys probably have heard about that, but it was very similar to that case. And that really shed light on that specific issue with me. Like, it really made me think about, that I'm being validated for the color of my skin. It's not just my qualifications. In reality, the qualifications only get you so far in the door. When you are African American, the other part is what color you are, and they want that information on the application. I never understood that when I apply for a job. Why do they need to know my ethnicity? Why is that even important? So I never really understood the importance of that. I mean, it does absolutely anything. It doesn't do anything. So I always question that particular thing itself.
Thanks, Tamaya.
It's a very important point. I could tell you, just even have to think about that. Okay, is there anything else in the chat right now? I know we do have a couple of comments. Kristen, anything we'd like to mention, or any other questions?
Well, we can briefly, Roman said, how do you all fight the stigma of being given handouts, in quotes, because, quote, you're Black? And Micaiah or David, do you have anything to add there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question in the chat was, how do you fight the stigma of, quote, being given handouts because, quote, you're Black?
How do I fight the stigma of giving handouts?
Being given handouts is what the chat says.
Of being given handouts?
So that's basically a comment referencing the fact that there are some provisions that are made sometimes for people of color to be able say, because of that, there would be certain, like in certain cases, there's a certain number of minorities that should be at least interviewed and hired. Maybe there's other provisions that are made for a person of color. How do you feel about the fact that maybe there's challenges in being a person of color, but then there's also handouts that might, quote unquote, handouts that might be provided? How do you feel about that? What's your reaction to that, or comments about that? You may not have faced it yet or been exposed to it, so you may say that you don't have a reaction to it. That's fine as well. But any thoughts or comments there?
So as far as, I haven't really experienced that yet, but my dad has always taught me about outworking others and basically not to let anyone outwork you. And what can you do to stand out, what differentiates you from the next person? And so I believe that if I continue to do that, continue to outwork all of my competitors, I believe that I won't really have to deal with that.
Going off that, handouts is just, I don't like handouts personally because I feel like you just gave me an easier way to like just let me in. So I like to work for my job or for whatever I'm doing, so yeah.
All right. Okay, Kristen, any other comments or okay, very good. Thank you all for your honest feedback and processing of the information. And again, very important comments you're making. We appreciate your honest perspectives. So with that, we've heard from our youth a bit. I'd like to now turn to Stacy and Amanda. Please describe how you are impacted and how you see others being impacted by racial inequality in your community. Stacy or Amanda, we want to go ahead.
I'll start, sure. I think right now the community and the country are more impacted than perhaps a lot of us have seen in our lifetime. I know in my lifetime, I've never seen this, I guess maybe to this degree, the involvement, the protests, these things. This is a big time in our society. And I think personally, how I'm affected is it's caused me to really stop and listen to these things that I thought maybe might have been the situation or my perspective that I can't accurately portray because I've never experienced this and I never will. So I'll never be able to fully understand. But it has allowed me to listen and to hear what people of color are saying and how I can use my voice to help move this forward and make a lasting change. So it's affecting my students, it's affecting my family, it affects me, of course, in different ways than it may the students who are speaking today or other people that live this daily, but it's definitely a time in our society that's caused me to really stop and listen, which I think has been very powerful.
Thank you, Amanda. Any follow-up on the chat at all? Kristen saying no. Okay, very good. Stacy, I'd like you to unmute and share your perspectives now.
So as a Black woman, first of all, we all know, and I'll say this piggyback off of Tamaya, I'm still judged by the color of my skin when I walk into the room. I have a master's degree, bachelor's degree, top of the class and everything I've done. The reason, as Deborah mentioned, that I have a queen of everything is because I've been forced to be that particular person because not only am I Black, I'm a woman that's Black. And so I have to try harder. And unfortunately, I would like to be able to tell my youth that it stops at a certain time period. Unfortunately, with the equality that we're facing, it has not stopped. So what I've experienced and what I see are issues that friends that I have that are actually friends, like Amanda and I are actually friends that we met from work. And so the issue that I see is that she's judged and can be judged for being a genuine friend to a Black woman. And so how and why do we have to continue to have the conversation? Because have you had that conversation with me to find out what we have in common? What led us to be together? So those are things that I see that are happening in the community, are really having to sometimes defend those genuine friendships. And then also like Tamia and I might like Micaiah and not Tamia, I want to say my niece is Tamia. We have to also understand that these are things that we're going to have to feel. I feel in every job that I go into, sometimes with any event, there are maybe 6 or 7 Black people in the whole entire building. And so you would think sometimes that have to make you feel a certain type of way. You have to put on an air. I am always 100% genuinely who I am. And so from that point, you have to grow. And that's what I see probably it should be happening in our communities.
Well, thank you for that, Stacy. And I can attest to that too. I've seen you in different environments. You are genuine, you're authentic, you are who you are. You don't try to be a chameleon and just always just fit and adjust. Sometimes there are times when, you have to change your behavior a bit in certain environments. If you're in a work environment, you're not going to be as casual and things of that nature, but you're always consistently and genuine. Amanda and Stacy, you both spoke so well. And again, representing different ethnicities, different school systems, very, very thoughtful comments and responses and reality of what's going on. Kristen, any comments before I move to the next question?
Well, I know that David is time sensitive, so
Yes.
let's ask the next question, and David, with you in mind, first and
Very good.
foremost.
Very good, David. Yes, be prepared. The question is, and this is for, we're going to hear from a couple of our young people. How are you and your peers talking about this situation that we're discussing today? And where are you getting your information, and how do you wish to see it addressed? David, please.
Okay. I talk to a lot of people about what's going on right now, but the person that I really love talking about racism, is with my grandpa, because he's already seen it all. He's been here, 1960s, 70s, so he's seen it all. So talking to him about it and just getting information from him, it makes me see why some people are racist and why some people are not. But me personally, I see that racist people, they're just one-sided, they don't understand the other side of the story. So I feel like if you would just give them some knowledge, then they'll understand both sides. My grandpa, he thinks the same thing, he also thinks it goes off the government, and our president, because he doesn't see the president, doing his job. And me personally, I kind of don't see the president doing his job, even though he says he does, but he thinks the president not doing his job, not helping at all. So, and he's experienced, racism as well. And he was in the service. So he was fighting war with, all types, white, black, Mexican, all types of people. So yeah. So speaking to him is just kind of made life easier for me. And him being scared when I go out at nighttime, or if I was to get pulled over and I tell him, it's a scary thing for him, because he doesn't know if I could deal with police brutality or something, or if I could be the next black male on the news or anything. So with talking to him, it makes it easier for him and myself, and it makes both our lives easier. So that's why a lot of times I stay low key and try not to be in a big crowd or get in trouble and, and stuff like that. So.
Very good. And congratulations for taking a mentor, like a grandfather's advice so well, and adjusting. Sometimes people hear information and they don't adapt to it. So very good. I'd like to also then now ask Tamaya if you could share with us your thoughts about this as well.
Yes, piggybacking off of what David mentioned, I believe it's lack of education, lack of knowledge on both ends that really is the forefront of the issue. We're just not that knowledgeable about the white culture, and they're just not as knowledgeable, as with the Black culture. And until we are more knowledgeable and see both sides of the spectrum, we can never really become one. However, I do speak with my best friend about this issue. We discuss this topic time and time again, over and over. We're always talking about this topic, and I find it very beautiful. We have very beautiful moments where we talk to a big group of people where it's really mixed and diverse, and the conversations go super deep, and you'll be surprised at, what the opposite side thinks and how they feel about certain things. It really becomes two races that are afraid of each other. That's what it really boils down to. Being in these chats and listening to the different opposing sides of the situation, I find these sessions to be very beautiful, and they shed light on both sides of the spectrum, and really help me so that in case I'm in situations or problems that we discuss, I will know how to react in those situations. So I think they're very helpful, and I hope to even advance in that area in the future.
Thank you so much for your feedback. Thank you. Very, very well spoken. All right. With that, I know we have a couple of follow-up questions. Kristen, any thoughts about any follow up on that.
Yeah, I would, lastly, Micaiah, did you want to offer any thoughts?
Yes, I will. I too believe that it is also from a lack of knowledge and ignorance of not actually understanding one and basically just judging one off of the color of their skin. um, I do talk to my peers about it a lot. I know I do have a mentor. Her name is Courtney. She was actually a counselor here at my high school. And outside of that, I believe that African Americans are in a fight. I believe that we have always been in a fight. First, there was a fight for humanity, which then turned into a fight for freedom, which then turned into a fight for equality. And now it seems as if we are in a fight for survival.
Mm, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you. Serious thoughts there. Any other comments from our young people? Maybe you have time for one more. I think we covered the key. I think we covered our panelists, haven't we? Any follow-up on that, Kristen?
Yeah, I would just, a personal comment, I think, to Maya, what you mentioned, where you said it really becomes two races who are afraid of each other. That was a particularly powerful moment for me personally. I know I got at least one text that said powerful, because it's just interesting. And I congratulate you and encouraged by you that you're having these beautiful discussions with this diverse community of people, because I do think that starts to break down some of that fear, much like this conversation hopefully is doing. And then I think for Micaiah and David, you both mentioned the importance of mentorship and kind of how that has shaped a lot of your experiences. And that's so core to Jobs for Michigan's graduates as well. So just two big things that resonated with me personally from what you all are saying. David, I want to make sure to ask you one more question before you hop off. So this is a question to both David and Micaiah, but David will ask you first. Have you ever witnessed someone being treated unfairly because of their racial or ethnic identity? And if so, how did you respond?
Okay, so I never witnessed, like I was never there, but I always heard. So I remember talking to my dad one time, and he said he got pulled over for having expired tags on his car. And as he was explaining, he said that the police officer took him to jail for having expired tags. So I sat there and I was like, "Are you serious? Like, it's just expired tags. He couldn't just let you off with a warning?" And I said, and he was like, "Yeah, I thought he was gonna let me do the same thing, just let me off with a warning, and I just get, my tags renewed the next day." But he said no. He took me to jail, and I was in there for about 2 days. And I sat there and I thought about it like, wow. So we're getting targeted for everything, no matter what it is. It could be the littlest thing, just like expired tags on a car. Like, it could be just, no matter what it is, we could just be walking down the street and just get racial profile. Like, it actually hurts just hearing it. And when I asked him, I said, okay, well, was the officer black or white? He said, officer was white. And I was like, that is crazy. So now it's like every time I drive, I'm always in the rearview mirror, or anytime I see a police officer or a police car, it's just like, I get scared because I always feel like they're about to pull me over and I might be next in jail, or they might hurt me. So, yeah.
David, thank you for sharing with such vulnerability and candor. I know you have to hop off of the discussion, but is there any kind of concluding comments that you'd like to share before you do?
I would like to just say, for everybody, not only just colored people, but also just for every race, just see both sides of the story. Don't be one-sided. Don't worry about what you hear on social media, because social media not going to give you the full story. Support every movement, not just the Black Lives Matter movement, because I know there's something going on with Mexican people too, being deported, to Mexico because they come here for jobs and stuff. So just support every movement, you know, and don't be one-sided. And do not worry about what other people say. Just keep doing you, be yourself, and keep working hard. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to talk with you guys.
David, thank you. Best wishes at Eastern this fall. And we're sorry to hear about the football season, but we know you'll make the best of it. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Okay, you too. Thank you, guys.
Micaiah, I know the question was initially directed at you. I would join in one of the chat questions because I think it's pertinent to this discussion. David spoke about having to keep his head down and worry what would happen if he were to be pulled over by a police officer. And that also came up on our last Coffee with a Purpose call. One of our team members, Elizabeth, said, I've heard this shared before by other Black males. And then the question was to Tamaya and Micaiah, do you experience this as well as a Black female?
Yes, I do. I do believe that sometimes African American males and men are extreme targets as far as police officers specifically, but I do feel as if I have experienced the same.
Okay, thank you. And then I know the question was initially to you. Anything else that you wanted to add around the general topic of being treated unfairly because of racial or ethnic identity?
Yes, I have plenty of times. I know there was a time where I walked into a store and there was a Caucasian person in front of me, and you know how typically they will have a greeter at the door, you know, hi, how are you, or something like that. And so I may not always get the same energy that a Caucasian person may have. So say like there's a Caucasian person in front of me and they walk in, the greeter's like, hi, how are you? Sometimes they won't even greet me. They'll just look at me, and I'll take that time as an opportunity to speak myself, because although it is rude, sometimes you just have to do that.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing. Sometimes you don't think about those little moments that can be so big. Tamaya, anything to add to either question specific to what David shared or this more general topic?
Yeah, piggybacking off of both of them. Yeah, I've had an experience with that as well, especially the speaking when the communication is a big thing. This newspaper wanted to write about me being accepted to Stanford when I graduated from Benton Harbor High School. And I really was down for the interview with this company. And when they sent their representative out, she was a white woman, and I was explaining to her and explaining the story behind everything. And the whole time of us meeting, she was trying to write what she wanted to write and write it how she wanted it written. And it was completely different from the meaning that I wanted it to have and from my perspective. And I told her, I said, you know what, ma'am, this isn't my voice at this point. This is your voice. And I was like, I don't think I want to be in your newspaper. But I've experienced that as well, where, the communication is just really horrible in some situations.
Thanks, ladies. And Tamaya, I'm glad you bring up voice and the importance of voice. That's really the core purpose of this conversation. You all are doing such a beautiful job of sharing yours. So we certainly appreciate that. Switching gears to a particularly troubling topic, at least for me personally, I'm certain many of you as well. I know Amanda recently, one of your youth, one of our JMG family members, was a victim of a racially motivated hate crime. Obviously the most egregious of anything that we're talking about in many ways today. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Absolutely. So on June 6th at Sterling State Park, one of our JMG students who was set to graduate 5 days later was at the beach swimming with some friends when a man decided he didn't appreciate the type of music they were listening to, the volume that it was at. and decided to take it upon himself to start a verbal altercation, which resulted in him retreating to his vehicle with a bike lock and chain and attacking Devin. Devin broke his jaw, had 3 teeth knocked out, and had to have stitches in his face. So this was, I mean, perhaps the most troubling situation I've personally been a part of. Devin remained just even happy, positive through this entire experience, which was really encouraging to me, and the community really came together for him. A dentist in Wyandotte actually paid for his teeth so he could have teeth for graduation. And throughout all this, even though he couldn't be here today, he's been incredible. He did heal up pretty well. I've seen him about once a week since this happened, and he's very strong, but it was the most troubling situation I've ever been a part of by far. So I guess I forgot to mention during this, the man did use several racial slurs prior to and during the attack, which is why it's being charged as racially motivated crime.
Thank you, Amanda. And I know you and I have spoken about this separately, and you've certainly embodied Jobs for Michigan's graduates in being alongside Devin throughout this entire process. But we are sad that Devin couldn't join us today, but certainly all thinking of him. Thanks for sharing that. Tamaya, what is your reaction when you hear stories like this? And how would you help one of your JMG peers and his family come to terms with what had happened?
First and foremost, I'm very devastated to hear this horrible story. And my first immediate reaction is, what is the status of the person that committed the crime? Are they in custody? What's the outlook on them? How are they being punished? Are they caught yet? Are they behind bars? Like, that's my first obligation is, what is the status with the people that did it and the victim? And my heart really definitely goes out to his family, and what I would do to help is, just reach out to him and be a support system and someone that he could talk to, because really when people experience these issues, sometimes they just need someone to listen, someone to just tune in, not be there to judge, not be there to take sides, but just to listen. And so I would be the crutch that the family could lean on, to just, get things off of their chest, whatever they need to say, be there and really, truly listen. I think that's the best thing that I could do.
Thanks, Tamaya. And Amanda, do you want to just give us a little bit of additional detail if you can?
Sure. So the man who hurt Devin was arrested immediately. He actually stayed at the scene after it happened. So he was taken immediately into custody, and he has been in the county courthouse since June 6th when this happened. His trial has been moved to circuit court, and there's some discussion currently about what the charges will look like, but he has an official arraignment, so August 19th. And from my understanding, they're trying to work out a plea deal. That's what I've been following in the court cases, and that's what they're discussing currently, but we will know a little bit more after August 19th.
Thank you, Amanda. And please pass along the JMG family love to Devin, as I know
Absolutely.
you continue to do. Tamaya, thank you for sharing, reaching out, and being a support system, just someone to listen. Those are applicable words for any situation, so thanks. All right, to Micaiah and Stacy, in what ways can you bring people together so that your collective voice can be heard? What ways might we bring people together so our collective voices can be heard?
I'll start off. So for me, what I try to do, so let me tell you about an event I went to. We did a scavenger hunt. And what I liked about this was that we had lunch at first, They were no assigned seats. There were assigned seats. We did not get to pick where we were. We were all adults at this function. We were then, after lunch, you had to sit at the tables and you didn't know anybody. I, again, and I say this because this is what we're talking about, was the only Black person and the only Black woman at a table of 10. So we were then instructed that we had to go and play a game on, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Goose Chase. It's a really great thing and we should all incorporate it. But it's a scavenger hunt. And they took us to the Dearborn Henry Ford Museum. And we went through that, but this is your group, the people that you had at lunch, that you had no idea who they were. And we had to come together. We had to learn how to communicate. You had to introduce yourself. You had to open up. And so some of the things that I learned from doing this and why I would love to do it with other specialists as well, is because you're always judged. White Americans tend to, I don't care what they say, guide themselves towards other white Americans or those that look like them. You would think in a situation like that you would have those that would stand out and come towards the only minority and think about how she may feel to make her feel at home since you're in an activity together. Initially, that was not the case. But as we went on and the communication started and you started going through the game, you started to become together. And some of those barriers and walls were broken down because not only did you have to learn in order to win the game, you had to continue to get to know that person. So going forward, I would like to introduce things like that. What we can learn as specialists is that we need to be able to do that. I think maybe we should do something like a specialist swap. I don't care what you say. There's a difference with you having to be at River Rouge and Amanda's school and some of your students' barriers and some of mine. You need to be able, if I'm all the way up north and I'm a specialist and I'm all the way down here and downriver, there's a difference with the level of barriers and how those barriers are. And so as specialists, we kind of need to swap a little bit maybe and be able to see how you react to some different youth in different areas. And I think it would help us grow and respect that other person of color or non-color. And you would get a better appreciation and things would go seem a little bit more seamlessly at that point.
Thank you, Stacy. Micaiah?
Yes, I can agree on the same thing that she stated. I know sometimes JMG will have events where different students from JMG, they will all come together and they will all have to work together. I know one time we went, I believe it was in Lansing, and we were kind of split up and we were kind of forced to work together with a bunch of people who you didn't know, different races and whatnot. I believe that we should do more things like that to get to know one another instead of just judging a person on their skin tone, seeing how they really are personally. And so I believe that that can actually bring us together.
Thank you, ladies. And one of our audience members sent me a private message that in some ways goes along with this conversation when we're talking about getting together, collective voice, certainly a departure from that. But they said, I'm interested to hear the youth thoughts about the looting and some of the abuse, et cetera, that's happening during the riots or protesting, I presume, and if they believe this is helping the protests. So obviously collective voice is this protest idea, and then our audience member is interested in hearing your thoughts around some of the looting and the negative behaviors that have been happening with the riots.
So can you, I don't know if you mind, but can you please ask the exact question that's supposed to be answered?
Yep, the audience member said privately, I'm interested to hear youth thoughts about the looting, physical abuse, et cetera, during the riots, and if they feel this is helping the protests.
I do not believe that the looting is helping the protest. However, I believe that it's only done because they are angry. We have tried we as in the African American community, African Americans and those who stand with us have tried to peacefully protest. I know here in Detroit, they were protesting for the Black Lives Matter movement. They were shot with rubber bullets, and they had tear gas thrown on them. And so not saying that it's okay, but what more can you do when you've tried to be peaceful, you know? So.
Thanks, Micaiah. Tamaya, anything that you would add?
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Micaiah mentioned, I mean, yeah, what more can we do? I mean, it doesn't make it right necessarily, but I mean, what more can we do? Personally, I wrote a song inspired by this angriness that we're facing as a nation, not just the racial situation, but also the coronavirus, because we're all going through that as well. This song is called "They Can't Put Us Down," and it's on YouTube. All you guys have to do is search "They Can't Put Us Down" and my video will pop up. The name of my channel is Maya Moneybag. So go ahead and watch that YouTube video, check out the music video. It was released 2 months ago and a lot of people enjoy it. And basically in the song, it's talking about racism and just lifting up. It's a really big uplifting song and a motivational song. So that's a tribute that I did to help the Black community, to help us fight for equality. And I will be having a part 2 coming out very soon. But I do agree, I mean, like, what else can we do when we've tried to be very peaceful, yet and still it doesn't make it right?
Thanks,
I know
ladies.
they asked for the youth, but do you mind if I say a little
No,
bit?
please.
So I too had a problem with that initially because that's what's recorded. But if you notice, a lot of times what I saw on social media, it was not Black America, it was not the people that were marching for Black Lives Matter that were looting and that were taking things. I think that if you look back in history, Black people as a whole are a very non-violent type of people. I know that for sure. You can have a car that breaks down in a Black neighborhood and they will help you out before you can go into a white neighborhood and your car breaks down. They may not even ask you what's wrong, what's going on. So I'm saying that to say, like Micaiah and Tamaya said, we're at a boiling point. We're at an issue where everything is going crazy. And there are some people who are coming in that choose to make us look bad because they want to have that forthrightness. Because if you have color to your skin, you have to be a violent person. You have to be non-educated. You have to want to steal. You have to want these things that we already have in our homes. And so it's a misconception, it's a stereotype. Majority of that I saw Black Americans trying to stop those people from looting. We are entrepreneurs. We own these buildings. We own these stores. So it's not the case most of the times. And so I think with the looting, you have to take it situation by situation. And I think Tamaya said it first, look at everything and see what exactly is going on before you make judgment and think that encompasses the whole race, because that's not the case.
Yep, very good. Absolutely. So I just want to chime in and say, that even in our chat room, we're having a lot of comments from our participants on how this breaks many hearts, that these issues are still so prevalent. And so this conversation is important. It won't end today, but it definitely is a trigger for us to be as a whole working so diligently to make this a better community, a better world. So we're coming to a close. I have a couple of questions and we can kind of cover these briefly. And again, I know we need more time than we'll have today, but we are certainly all in this together. Equality is giving everyone the same opportunities. Equity is realizing those same opportunities don't produce the same outcomes for marginalized populations because of the everyday encounters that pose barriers to their success, like biases, some of the issues we're talking about today. In a couple of, we're going to just take a couple of minutes here, but I want to ask a couple of our youth here, what would you like to see happen so that you can personally feel racial equity is achieved? It could be at your school, in your community, at your workplace. Micaiah, let's start with you.
Can you repeat the question one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes. What would you like to see happen so that you personally feel racial equity is achieved at your school, in your community, at your workplace? What can we do to make everyone have equal opportunities and have racial equity? What would you like to happen? Mhm.
Okay, to begin with funding, I believe that all schools should be funded the same, regardless of the neighborhood. I feel like as far as the teachers, it should be diverse in in all of the schooling systems. In the workplace, I know in some higher positions, you don't really see as many African Americans. I too believe that that is important, not only in the community, in schools, and in the workplaces, but I also think it's in the government too. You don't really see too many African Americans, and I believe that diversity is important. So it really starts there.
Very good. All right, great. Tamaya, do you want to quickly comment on something in this area as well? Anything?
And Deborah,
definitely.
sorry, go ahead, Tamaya. And then I would say this is the last question. So Stacy and Amanda, as you kind of think it through as well. Tamaya, back to you.
Okay. So yeah, I definitely agree. We do need to get out there more and be more diverse, because without the diversity, it creates a lot of barriers as far as how much or how far the African American race can go. If you really think about it, predominantly the businesses that are predominantly white, their children have first picks or first say because mama or daddy is the owner, or they're sitting in the big man's chair. And yet for us, that never really exists. So we really have to fight hard to even retrieve a position, if that. So I feel that getting ourselves out there more is helpful. And a way that we can do that is what me and Micaiah are doing right now. We're educating ourselves. We're in college. We're trying to make set a better example for our family, and do great things. I mean, that's a great way to start. If you are a young person watching this, I strive you and encourage you to seek education. That's the way out.
Very good, very good. Thank you for that. And I'd like to ask Stacy, what policy or operational changes would you like to see happen in the schools and the districts to address racial inequity?
So I work for the River Rouge School District, and it's a great thing for our district because I would say almost 50-50, if not that. So we're very diverse. And I think some people are amazed when I tell them that, because we have a Hispanic population, our staff population is divided. So you don't walk into River Rouge and see, because you have maybe 65% African American, all Black teachers, all white teachers. There's a great mix of all of us. And so I think that that's a great thing. As Tamaya was saying, you don't want to have to fight for that, right? I think so. Our school district, our superintendent has done a great job at making sure that the world is represented. And the reason I say that in the policies and procedures are things that we have done with JMG. By putting programs like this into JMG, it can't be exact policy, but it can be a procedure that you utilize inside of your school district to make sure that they are aware. So when we take them on talent tours before COVID and things of that nature, you see other schools. So if I run into Amanda or if I run into Tiffany and they have different kids with them, we can introduce our kids. We can say, hey, and because they see how we interact, they'll interact. Some of our students have become friends or follow each other or things of that nature because of us having this particular program as a policy or in that school district. These are things that could probably help or will help change that. If you have to make it fit to you, I don't think it'll work. You can't make this work. You can't just force it to work. I like to say to the rest of us, I don't want us to feel as that because you're a white American or I'm a Black American, that you are at fault for everything that has happened. What I'm saying and I think the purpose of this is to just be able to listen and learn. Don't feel bad because you see a Black woman out here and you're like, oh my God, I know I need to hug her. It's not that type of conversation. You just need to be open. We have to understand, we have to be, just like we have triggers and we have barriers, you have to be untaught certain things. It's not a lot of people's fault. Sometimes you are raised in a rural area where the only Black Americans that you saw were on television. So when you meet someone like me, it's not that you are insensitive. It's like, wow, she did this. She went to eat. You're not used to that. So give yourself time to get used to that. And I think that will make a difference and be a great policy or procedure.
Wow, well said, well said. And again, kudos to Dr. Derek Coleman, your trailblazing leader that you referenced in terms of creating that type of environment that you have. And we need to see more of that. Thank you for that. Amanda, as an educator, how do you ensure racial equity for all of your students?
Yeah, so I think a lot of what Stacey said are things that I had intended to say too in agreement. It's just not just my students, but this conversation has to start way before they get to our program. That's where we'll see this change. It has to start at home. It has to start at elementary school, in TV shows where they portray Black actresses, in children's books where kids can see these people look like me. And in my classroom, the biggest piece was for me to recognize that I can't relate to this. When I get up and I teach financial literacy, or I get up and I teach job interviews, I have to recognize that maybe not everybody has the outfit in their closet that I do. Maybe we have to talk about all of the pieces that go into this, and we have to talk about racism. We can't continue to be with these youth, to be with other adults and say, it's how it's been, it's how it's gonna be. It doesn't have to be. And until we can acknowledge the issues at hand like we're doing today and we can talk about it openly, it's not going to change. So in regards to my students, being an ally, being an advocate, and listening to what they have to say and their experiences are the only way, it's the only way that I'll be able to be what they need me to be. And like I said, that starts even younger than when they arrived to me at 14 years old.
Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to jump in the interest of time, because I know we have lots of allies who are saying their gratitude on the chat and signing off. Unfortunately, we do have to close the conversation today. This does conclude Coffee with a Purpose. Our immense gratitude to Tamaya, Micaiah, and David earlier for the candor and vulnerability. Someone said it, I think Chelsea Mate said on the chat, thank you so much for the candid conversation. If Micaiah, Tamaya, and David are our future, then we're in excellent hands, and that could not be truer. Thank you as well to our adult panelists, Stacey and Amanda, my wonderful co-moderator, Deborah, whom I love. I'm so grateful to work with all of you as colleagues and friends. And lastly, thank you to our audience for your time, energy, and interest.